All right, thank you very much. Hey everyone, I'm so glad to be here. Shout out to everyone all over the world who was watching this. I was able to make it. My name is Tony Sholarin Shodora, and I'm a software engineer based out of Lagos, Nigeria. I'm also a Microsoft MVP for developer technologies, and I enjoy working on and contributing to open source software. So today I'm going to be showcasing one of my projects that was both challenging and pleasant to build. And it's also received a considerable amount of community uptake. It's called Coverlet, and it's not the first to say, but I'd say it's kind of the most used cross-platform code coverage tool for .NET Core. So before I go, this is going to be a demo-heavy presentation, but before I jump over to like showing us code and terminals and stuff, I'm just going to geek out a bit to explain Coverlet and how it works. So over to the next slide. So typically the standard way code coverage tools work in the .NET framework was that they made use of the profiling APIs. However, in the early days of .NET Core, and I think at this point, it's still the profiling APIs are not yet fully fleshed out as they are with the full framework. As a result, the popular tools like OpenCover, Cover that we're used to using on Windows with the full framework have not been ported over to .NET to work with .NET Core. So I decided to to come up with a solution that bypassed the profiling API altogether. So how Coverlet works is basically it recognizes your unit test assembly, picks out the dependencies from your test assembly. Then Coverlet injects instrumentation code within those dependencies because naturally, if you have a test assembly for the main project, then it needs to pick up the main project. So it takes that main project, injects instrumentation code, and then it goes ahead to run your tests. So while the tests are running, the injected code within the assemblies are constantly recording the code paths that were hit to a temporary file. And then once tests are complete, Coverlet takes up from there, calculates the coverage. And once it's done with that, it restores all dependencies back to their original form. So you do not have to do any manual cleanup yourself. All these processes are, of course, fully transparent to the user. They do not need to interact with them. And from the user point of view, all you have to do is run a command and view your results. So I'm going to jump right over to a demo now so you can see Coverlet in action. So over here, we have a typical .NET Core solution. We have the SLN file, we have the source program, which is where our code lives. And then we, of course, have the unit test project. So I decided to show something really easy and simple that we can all understand real quick. So I created a simple math class that comes with four different methods. So we have the add method, we have the subtract method, we have the multiplication, and we have the division. So it's simple, pretty straightforward. Add, subtract, multiply, and it goes on like that. And then we have the test project, which basically tests out the individual methods that we have over here. So you can see here we have a test for the add method, we have a test for the subtract method, we have a test for the multiplication method as well. There is no test for the division method, and I'll show you why in a bit. So the very next step here is I'm just going to go run the test for now, just so we can. So you can just go into the test folder, and then you can just run the .NET test as you usually do. And I mean, standard practice. All this does is build a project and run the test. So all our tests are passing great. However, there's something I'd like to do. I would like to see how much of my code has been covered by my unit test. So notice that I'm working with the MacBook. This would also work on the Windows and the Linux, and I probably will test that out later if we've got time. So the first step will be to add Coverlet to your project. So Coverlet is available in two flavors. You can either include it as a package in your unit test project, or you can install it as a global tool. So including it as a package in your test project allows Coverlet to integrate fully with your build pipeline. So I'm going to show you both approaches to using Coverlet. So we're going to start out with the most straightforward one, which is using it as a package. So to do that, all we just do is the .NET add package coverlet.msbuild. By the way, this is also coming from public Nugget repository. And yeah, there we go. So using Coverlet is straightforward. So we have our .NET test that we used before. Now we want coverage information. So to do that, we just add a new property, collect coverage equals to true, and we let it run. So over time, I should mention that the performance of Coverlet has greatly improved. So now it adds very little overhead to the test run. There was a time you used to add times 2. It used to take double the time to run your test when you bring in Coverlet. So we can see here by just adding this extra property, we see that Coverlet automatically integrated itself without us having to do any extra sort of setup. So you can see your tests run, everything passes, yeah. You can see it generating the JSON result, and then you can see a summary. So if you come over back to the code, you can see, yeah, so this is a very simple JSON file. So this is Coverlet's own code coverage format. It's basically a straightforward JSON that contains the line information, the branch information, as well as the method information. This is the result. And you can see this is a very straightforward, summary result. So, I mean, from the result, you see we're not doing so well. Our method coverage is at 75%, which is hugely unacceptable. If you come over here, it's because, of course, we have 4 methods and we didn't create a test for the div method, so naturally 75. We can see our branch coverage is exactly 50%. And we attribute that to the subtraction. Method because you can see it has 2 possible execution paths. When the second argument is 0, because we do not want to run into divide by 0 exceptions, and of course when that's not the case. So we see that if we look over at our test, we see that we are only testing the path where the second argument is not equal to 0. And of course, we have the line information, which tells us how much, in terms of how much of our lines have been covered. So before I jump into improving the coverage, our coverage results, I want to show you all the other different formats that Coverlet supports and how to, work with them. So this is, of course, the program we ran previously to get the coverage results. So to get a new format, so apart from the JSON format, Coverlet supports 3 other formats, which is OpenCover, Covertura, and LCOV. So you can use the Coverlet output format property. So let's call OpenCover. So build that, run your tests, generate your results, get over here, and we can see the OpenCover information over here. So I'm going to do that for Covertura as well. Covertura. I hope this is how to spell it. Can't remember. Okay. Runs. Great. And then we can see Covertura. So guys who are coming from the Java world and everything will, are familiar with Covertura. And we have LCOV. Conf is pretty popular, especially in the Linux world, where you can use GenHTML to just sort of generate an HTML report. So these are all, so you can see we have a coverage.info, which is LCOV file. It's also a pretty popular format. We have Covertura format, we have Coverlet's own JSON format, and we have OpenCover format. So this is done so that you do not have to start creating converters to convert between formats, just so you can work with your existing tools. I decided while building this, I decided to pick some of the most popular formats so that you can just use it out of the box, and it could be a drop-in replacement for whatever tool you were using before. Okay, so now we're going to go over to understanding how to enforce certain coverage requirements with Coverlet. So as you can see here, we have line coverage of 71.4%, branch coverage of 50%, and a method coverage of 75%. So imagine if in an organizational setting where we have a best practice, I'll call it a threshold, for what our coverage percentage should look like. So with Coverlet, you can set a coverage threshold. So I'm going to go ahead and set, let's call it 100% because we're perfectionists. So yeah, so it's going to build that out. It's going to run our coverage, and then it's going to throw errors. So you see we still get our coverage summary, but then we also get an error that says, okay, our line coverage is below the specified threshold, branch coverage, and our method coverage. You can, of course, specify that, okay, you only want to enforce the threshold for, say, method coverage, for example. And if you do that, you'd see Coverlet will only throw a single error. But yeah, we want it across board, so let's leave it at 100%. So let's go back to the code and sort of see how we can get over to 100%. So the first step for that will be, of course, we can look over here and see that we're not testing the div method. So we can just go ahead and add a test for the div method. Set the equal, just take the 100, math.div, 101, then facts. And so let's go run it again and see how that change is going to improve our coverage. All right, so we can see our line coverage has gotten a bit better. And then, yeah, we got our method coverage at 100%. And take a look, now we only have 2 errors, which is the line and the branch coverage results. So let's go over here and improve the branch coverage. So we need to test this path of our subtract method. So I'm just going to add a simple stuff here, ensure it returns 0. Ooh, probably should have been for divide, but anyway, that's okay. And then we test that here. And then we can see we don't have any errors. We're covering all our branches, we're covering all our methods, and we're covering all our lines. And yeah, that is straightforward, pretty straightforward. You don't have to do so much setting up or preparations to get started and productive with Coverlet almost immediately. All right, so I'm going to move over to showing us the other way of using Coverlet, because this was the approach I originally used when I developed it. But then you had people who did not want to, of course, pollute their dependency trees with extra packages that they only needed in development. They didn't want to have to, add a new package that's going to make it to production that's only for development purposes. So I'm going to remove the package now, and then we're going to see how we can install Coverlet as a tool. So we should, okay, so it's out. Let's get rid of. All this stuff here. Great. All right. So now we no longer have Coverlet included in the package list, but we still want to get coverage results. So what we can do is we use the new global tools feature in .NET Core. I think it came out with .NET Core 2.0, 2.1. I can't really remember. But then all we do is .NET to install global coverlet.console. Of course, this is also on Nugget. And then we do that. It takes a while. And then if you just type Coverlet help, you can see the help stuff for Coverlet. All right, so the Coverlet Global tool works slightly differently from the MS Build or the build pipeline integration approach. It requires a bit more prep to be able to get it done quickly. So the first step is we need to specify the path to the test assembly. So by path to the test assembly, we mean the path to basically the compiled DLL, which would be this guy over here. So I think I'm just going to go ahead and use, so I'm just going to notice that I'm in the test folder. So I'm going to just do 2.1. Let me confirm. Okay, .conf, .tests, .dll. Great. So now we add the stuff. Then we go ahead to, now we have to specify the target. Now, because we do not integrate with the build pipeline, we have to ensure that we specify our test runner. So in this case, our test runner is going to be .NET. We're still using this typical .NET test infrastructure. And then we have target args. So here, .NET test, all well and good. We are in the directory for the test, so we do not need to specify the path to the CS proj. We can just put, so this is basically the equivalent of running the .NET test within this directory. Also, something very important here, we have to specify the no build flag. And the reason is, remember when we were talking about the Coverlet internals, right? Coverlet injects code into your assemblies. So if a build happens, because usually .NET, when you run .NET test, it does a build first and then runs your tests. So specifying no build says, okay, just run the test straight up, do not build, because Coverlet actually instruments your assemblies before it runs this. So you need to ensure that running this does not remove the instrumentation code that Coverlet injects. And I should also mention that you shouldn't be too concerned about Coverlet injecting code, because at the end of every run, it makes sure to put back the original. So it was never touched. And then, yes, so this should be all. So you can just hit enter and watch it do its magic. And there we go. So we have, all our tests passed. We are seeing the exact same information from above, but we're using the global tool. That's because, of course, the package as well as the global tool share the same core functionality. So all that's different is how you use it. So yeah, this is Coverlet stuff. We can, of course, specify. So you can see the information on what exactly you can specify over here. So we can, the threshold type that we did, you can exclude and include as well, which is also possible with the package, the MS Build version. You can exclude certain source files, so it doesn't, especially when you have situations where you auto-generated some files that basically should not be included in a test run. And of course, you can merge other results from other runs, basically. I'm just going to jump over to Skype to see if anyone has any questions. If not, just move on to showing a bit more with Coverlet. So now that you've seen the global tool and you've seen the MS Build, I'm going to try to integrate this with a CI server, basically. So you can see how, then you see Coverlet run on, a Windows machine, you see it run on Linux. And then if you have time, you can maybe push it to some coverage hosting service. So I have, yeah, so you can all go over here to get a demo of this code that I have. So I'm going to just integrate this with AppVeyor. That's typically my CI of choice, majorly because, well, it's got Windows and Linux build machines. So I'm going to just sign in over here. Let's see. All right, so I'm going to add new projects. Okay, sorry about that. For my GitHub, and we should look for, so over here. So we add that over here. Awesome. And then let's come back to our code. So I'm just going to copy off some previous stuff that I did. So we had the typical AppVeyor.yml. Awesome. So I'm just gonna breeze through this. Hey, what are you doing? All right. So I'm going to specify that AppVeyor should use Visual Studio 2015, which is going to be the Windows build agent, as well as Ubuntu, which is the Linux build agent. And we're going to have configuration, bug, release. Ooh, that was close. And then for our build script, let's do a simple PS. I love using PowerShell, by the way. Configuration. Yeah, just put that in, and then simply do a .NET build in the root of the folder. All right, and then for the test script, I'm gonna just have it run .NET test p collect coverage equals to true. Probably shouldn't forget to add that back over here, because I find that using the package approach tends to be a bit more convenient, because then you don't have to start running .NET Core global tools on your CI server. But whichever one works for you, basically, it'll work either way. .ms build. You just add that. Okay, great. So we can go ahead and just let me just make sure I don't have any typos. Yeah, so just go ahead and commit, add and improve code coverage, just commit that. And then we had the add AppVeyor YML. So we just push that over to the repo. So awesome. Okay, so we got our first error, have a typo. So let's look for that. I see. There you are. Which is great, by the way, because I use Circle CI sometimes, and if you have an error in your configuration file, it just doesn't build. So this is the first time this is happening to me, and it's pretty nice. So fix typo. Let's see how that works. Okay, let's take a look, see if that fixed it. Okay, so as you can see, we have our tests running on, well, two different build agents with in two different releases each. So we have the debug configuration for Windows. We have the release configuration for Windows. We have uh, Ubuntu debug and Ubuntu release. So we can just leave this to run and let's leave it to run. So I'm just going to move over to the Coverlet repo itself, which it's pretty active. So I constantly commit. I typically have people open up issues and I have PRs from the community. So here you'll find in huge detail all the documentation regarding Coverlet from, of course, talking about how it runs, so you can sort of understand that. And then we talk about usage with both the global tool format as well as using the MSBU format. Let's see, where's the MSBU format? Yeah. So you can see how to do things like specify multiple output formats in a single run, how to merge results, how to, I mean, you already saw how to thresholds and stuff. And then, oh yeah, something I should try to do. Let's go. I want to show you how to exclude certain things from being included in coverage calculations. So let's go over here and let's just temporarily comment this out. Come back here and do a .NET tests p collect coverage equals true. Bless me. And then great. So you can see, oh no, our method is at 75%, our line is at 78.6%. So what we want to do, let's assume, well, the div function is still under, the div method is still under, what's the word, development. We're not ready to include it in our coverage yet. So there's still a bunch of proof of concepts going on in there. We can just use system, I think it's diagnostics, the code analysis, yes. And then you can just apply this attribute onto the div, of course, coming from this namespace. And you can see that when you go to run the coverage again, you see that the div method basically had no effect on the final output because we told Coverlet to completely ignore it. So that's pretty convenient for situations where you do not want certain unfinished methods to pollute the coverage results. And if I do you one better, I'll show you the coverage of JSON that was generated, and you see that doing a search for div yields no results. But if you search for like sub, which are the other methods, you want to do the add method, you find all those that were there. So that's pretty cool. Hopefully you find it pretty cool. All right, ooh, test the failing. Let's find out why. Excuse me. It's weird. Oh, okay. So I need to just fix something real quick. .NET build. I want to have .NET tests slash. Let me just. Ooh, that was not supposed to happen. .cs proj. So this should fix it. Okay, I think that should get it fixed. Gamma test, and just confirm that. And let's try again. Let's do another push. Okay, so all right, so we'll have another one running in a bit. All right, so while this is running, I'll just talk about visualizing your coverage results, because look at it this way, right? You have all this information stored here, you have all this stuff in here, but it's not particularly human readable. You can, of course, write a piece of code to pass this information and give you a bit more context. But well, it's a lot easier if you have some sort of graph or charts and stuff to take a look at stuff. So I'm just gonna discard all this. So I'm going to talk about very briefly about it's called report generator. For those of you who used OpenCover on Windows a lot, you'll be very familiar with this particular project from Daniel. So what it does is it takes in XML reports in this format, in any of these, and then generates into basically something like this. So how this is happening, I'm just going to go over here and try to work with it. So luckily it has a global tool option. I haven't used this global tool before, by the way, but so I'm just going to copy that out. Just going to install that. Awesome. So I think it uses the report generator command. Yippee. Great. So so the first thing I'm gonna do is generate. The first thing I'm gonna do is to generate a coverage result in the OpenCover format. So I'm just gonna use the previous Coverlet output format. Decided to use OpenCover. We can of course use Cobertura since report generator supports Cobertura. Great, awesome. So this is a very straightforward example. So I'm going to run report generator. Report generator. I'm going to have. So I'm just going to copy this. Of course, I'm going to edit it a bit. So I want it to be in the report folder. It's also let me confirm that it's also coverage.opencover.xml. OpenCover.xml. So let's see how that works. Great, yippee. So over here, so we have the HTML file. So I'm just going to open this up. Let's see. Let me review in Finder. Okay, so I'm just going to click that. Woo. All right. So, yep. So we can see our information. We can see it shows us, we can go here, we can see all that information. We can see each line that is covered, which is absolutely great. We can see the line coverage. We can see the branch coverage as well. I don't think it does method coverage. Yeah, so this is pretty cool. So straightforward, in a very cross-platform way, you can get information about your how well your tests cover your code. So that's a pretty good tool from Daniel. Thank you, Daniel. Oh yeah, so we can see on Windows, we can see that one of our stuff over here passes, build success, and we see the coverage result generated. So I'm just gonna wait for this. I think we're almost done. Oh yeah, by the way, Coverlet also uses, it's sort of like a dog fooding process. So Coverlet uses its own, basically Coverlet runs tests on itself, and we use that to generate this handy little badge over here that we integrate with CodeConf, which is pretty popular. You have other ones like Coverlet and stuff. Also, let's see. So over here, you'd see that Coverlet is using the X unit. When we're using the X unit um, test framework. Just a good note that Coverlet works basically with any test framework that integrates with the .NET test functionality in the CLI. So whether it's a popular one or it's one built within your organization, Coverlet will be able to work with it as long as you have it integrated with .NET test. Also, using the global tool, even if it's not integrated with .NET Test, because you of course have the ability to specify things like the test runner and the arguments to those test runners. Ideally, Coverlet should be able to work with basically any .NET unit test runner out there. So we can see the Linux build over here, and of course we can see our coverage information. That's so I'm going to go back to the slides now, as that's pretty much it for the demos. Where are the slides? Great. So I'm going to play from here. All right. So as I mentioned earlier, we have a bunch of hosted coverage services that Coverlet works with. So it works with CodeCov using the open cover format. It works with Code Climate, also using the Covertura format. So you can or an LCov as well, because LCov and Covertura are supported by Code Climate and Coverlet. Then there's also VSTS, that's Visual Studio Team Services. Although now it's called Azure DevOps, which is pretty cool, especially because it gives you like 3 different build agents: Windows, a Mac, and as well as Linux. And then you have SonarQube, which is another hosted service that you can also use SonarQube with the Covertura or the open cover format. And then you have Coveralls, which would also work with the open cover format that Coverlet generates. So let's move over. So this part, I'm actually quite excited about this part. You have some projects over time that have been using Coverlet to get stuff done. So GitHub uses Coverlet for their OctoKit .NET client. They also use Coverlet in their GraphQL.NET client as well. Microsoft and the runtime devs, the .NET runtime devs, use Coverlet to get code coverage for. They use Coverlet to get code coverage for the Linux builds for .NET Core FX. So for those who might not be familiar with that term, .NET Core FX is basically more like the base class libraries for .NET Framework, but actually it stands for .NET Core, and they're a bit more modular because they're distributed as Nugget packages as opposed to being included in the runtime. And then you have Sentry, which is a fairly popular application performance monitoring service that uses Coverlet with their .NET client. Well, also I think it will be only fair to mention some other alternatives, because even though Coverlet is by far the most popular cross-platform solution, it wasn't the first on the scene. And sometimes you might have certain specific requirements that Coverlet might not be able to meet, or I might not be willing to add, depending on how much interest it has. So usually you could just use the other two, which is Mini Cover by Lucas Lawrence and Alt Cover by Steve Gilham. So these two diff projects, they try to achieve the same result as Coverlet, but of course they do it in a completely different way. So for example, with Mini Cover, you have a bit more control over the entire process, from things like what assemblies are instrumented, think what directories you want to find all your source files from, and even up to you having to do the instrumentation yourself to ensure that you have release ready packages. Alt Cover is also a very well featured project as well, so you can check both of them out and see, just in case Coverlet doesn't meet certain needs, then yeah, you can get in touch with me on any of these mediums. I'm basically Tornado, well, everywhere. So I tend to write a bit on Medium. I haven't written in a while. I've been focused on work and Coverlet. But you can, catch me on there. I'm on Twitter, I'm on GitHub, and then here's my email if you just have any information to share with me. And yeah, thank you guys for checking in. Do we have any questions? Actually, I don't even know how to check questions.
No, yeah, so we've been monitoring the chat, Tony. I don't think we have any questions. Okay. A lot of good comments. A lot of people say great demo. They really enjoyed it so far. I really enjoyed it over here, kind of learning about it. Now, you did say that, I have a question, I guess. You did mention that it works with any of the .NET test runners. So NUnit, MS Test, and XUnit, all of them supported?
Yeah. Oh yeah, all of them are supported.
All right,
that's awesome.
I just want to make sure I figured to give the whole list out, but yeah, I think that's it. Cool.
Yeah, and if you've got anyone that isn't so popular, as long as it's you have a runner for it, you can basically use it. It wouldn't really matter.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's all the questions over here, Tony. Thank you so much for showing us all the goodies. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to be able to link to your talk. Right. Every time I get a question now about how to test on extended libraries, I will point to your talk.
Cool. All right, Tony. Well,
thank you very much.
All right, cool. Cheers. Well, have a lovely, lovely day, and thanks for the presentation.
All right. Thank you for having me. I really, enjoyed myself. Well, have fun at the rest of .NET. See ya.
See ya. Bye. All right, we have the, go ahead and you can log out of there. Let's see. We have the one and only Jeff Fritz over here who tells us that audio is working.
Audio's working.
Audio is working.
Hey, hello, .NET Conf.
Yeah, we'll see. Well, Emo's not even in there anymore. There he is. Yeah. We'll see. He says that the audio is working, and I say great.
And the party just arrived.
Which is great. So everything's live. We're here. We all purchased iPhones, I believe. Not for me. I didn't buy one for myself because I'm an Android user. Did you buy one?
Did not buy one yet. Hey, Ozcoder. I see some folks. I'm seeing the .NET Bot salutes. Hello. Good morning. Good afternoon. Good evening. I'm wearing... this was the only hat I had with a bird on it.
How do I get a C# bot?
You get a C# bot if you are a subscriber to my channel.
Whoa, I see how
But you can use your Twitch Prime subscription over there for free. But here's the thing. Every one of those is a donation to Girl Develop It.
Oh, that's pretty great.
That's
I like
awesome.
that.
So, yeah, absolutely.
What's your Twitch handle for people who don't know?
C# Fritz.
C#
Just
Fritz.
like the Twitter.
C# Fritz.
Yeah.
Boom. I'm at James Magna. That's my name. And I am a Amazon Prime member. They still give away a free one?
Amazon Prime, you get a free Twitch Prime subscription. You get one channel you can subscribe to for free.
Every month.
And absolutely, it is for a good cause. Ancient coder knows how this works.
Now, I should probably do it while you're actually streaming because you probably have like Streamlab and jingles and jangles.
Absolutely.
I like that. So I don't want to do it now because then, I would get the bot, but then...
Yeah,
but then I wouldn't
there won't be big fanfare here on .NET Conf for that. We actually, some of the folks who are watching the stream, I want to say this morning, but it was yesterday morning when we were on with Kathleen Dollard, there were a bunch of folks that gave out gift subscriptions to random people on stream, and they got bots. Oh my gosh, it was a great
That's cool. That's awesome.
So,
well, lovely. Yeah, we've been kind of chilling. We're glad you're here to fix the audio.
Holding things down, making things happen. I saw you guys were having fun playing with the Stream Deck.
We did. I bought a Stream Deck tonight.
Are you kidding? That's great.
I bought a mini though. So.
The little 6-button.
Little 6-button. Emo bought one too. And the question is, we want to see if we can. Maybe you already know the answer. We want to create Stream Deck extension so I can F5 and F10 my code. Is that possible?
So the Stream Deck, each one of the buttons you can wire up to run applications or to fire hotkeys. There it is. So that's from our friends at Elgato. So,
because I already have a HD60 and an internal PCIe card, so I figured I'd just give Elgato all my money.
Absolutely,
yeah.
Right? They've done a tremendous job with those products. I fell in love with the Stream Deck, and I've seen the tweets you guys put out there. You took screenshots of photos of what the Stream Deck looks like that we've tricked out.
Pretty amazing
for .NET Conf. I really wanted to make it so that when we hand it off to you guys, when we hand it off to Javier, when we have breakfast with Beth a little bit later today.
Breakfast with Beth.
Da, da, da. It's just
music.
We do. We need theme music.
Challenge to all of our Twitch subscribers right now. I'll send you a Elgato Stream Deck. If whoever makes 6, now I'm not going to go all crazy with the 15, okay. But I will send you a Stream Deck Mini. If you submit to Jeff on Twitter, you have to make the music though, or your audio voice, and whoever Jeff picks, if anyone submits, you can win a Stream Deck Mini. I will send that anywhere.
Send music for
Beth. Breakfast with Beth.
Okay, so Beth is on in about 6 hours.
6 hours, 6 hour challenge.
Okay.
That's because now that we're just giving Elgato more money, so not a sponsor, not a sponsor. No sponsor.
Okay.
Who are our sponsors? Well, let's find out because we have awesome.
We've got lots of commercials.
We have one. You want to play
commercials? Fill in. Yeah, let's play.
Gonna do the Azure.
Let's see, who's that one?
Well, I guess right here.
Yeah, sure. Let's talk about Azure Functions.
All right, let's do it. I love Azure Functions.
Azure Functions is a serverless compute offering that enables you to run code on demand without having to explicitly provision or manage infrastructure. In this video, you'll learn how to get started developing serverless applications with Azure Functions using Visual Studio Code. If you want to get started with Azure Functions inside of Visual Studio Code, you need to make sure that you have the Azure Functions extension installed. So I'm going to go to Install Extensions, and I'm going to search for Azure Functions. Now I'm going to go down and select the Azure Functions extension for Visual Studio Code. Now notice I already have it installed, but if you don't, make sure you go ahead and hit that install button. Now once you have installed an extension, you should see a section down here for Azure with the Azure symbol. And then if I click on Functions, it should show me all my various subscriptions that I have. And if I, for instance, open the one that says Smart Hotel, and I open the functions, I should be able to see all of the functions that I have available inside of that specific Azure Functions app. Now, let's say I wanted to create a new Functions app right here on my machine. I can hit this icon here that says Create New Project. And now I can just select where exactly I want to put this. So let's create a new folder. First function. I'll choose that one. Now I can choose what language I want to use. In this case, I'm going to use C#. Now I'm going to choose to open it in a new window. So let's close that one in the back. Now that my project is created, I'm going to go ahead and restore the missing dependencies. Now the next thing we have to do is actually create a function inside of our empty project. So I'll open a command palette again this time. I'll type Azure Functions, and then I'll go to Create Function. I'll select that function app that we just created because that's where I wanted to go. And in this case, I want to create an HTTP triggered function. So I'll select the function trigger that I want. Now we have to actually give this function a name. I'll call this Simple API. We choose the namespace. Next, we can choose the access rights. I'm just going to leave this as anonymous for now. And then within a few seconds, Visual Studio Code should have generated a function using the options that we just specified. Now, if I close the terminal, we could browse through the editor and we could see the code that's available for us to use. Now, what if I wanted to debug this function on my machine? Well, I could go back to the command palette and I can hit Start Debugging. And now what we're seeing here is that the Azure Functions runtime is being booted up here locally on my machine. And so in a few moments, I'll be able to run and debug this serverless application right here on my machine. Now, if I go back over to the terminal, I can see the location that my actual API is living at. Let's do this. I'm going to open up Postman. I'm going to select this API endpoint that we wanted, and I'm also going to set a breakpoint right here inside of my function app. Back in Postman, I'm going to paste in the URL. I'm going to pass in that query string that it's expecting, and then I'll hit send. Now back in Visual Studio Code, you can see that my endpoint was hit. I could continue stepping through this function, and I can view the variables, the stack trace, and I can also see any exceptions that get thrown, as you would expect in any regular debugging session. I'll let it go ahead and finish running. And now back in Postman, I can see my results here returned to me in the screen. If you're interested in learning more, take a look at some of these resources below. We'd love to hear any feedback you might have, so feel free to send it over. Enjoy the rest of .NET Conf.
All right, we're back live. If the
right.
audio is still working, Jeff tells me the audio is working.
Yeah, we got it.
And I'm very excited because it is almost 2 a.m. here in Seattle, Washington.
Oh, yes. That's why I'm wearing... this was the only hat I had with a bird on it because the early bird is here.
Oh, you got it
by the
wrong.
shark.
The early worm is the one that gets caught.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a bird.
that's kind of how that works.
I don't know. We're
At
in
least that
Seattle.
wasn't the bird finger that you were.
Yeah, no, it wasn't that. And this is right, East Coast bird, not the Seattle bird.
No,
So,
wrong bird. That's okay. Well, what do we have? What do we have going on now, Jeff?
who's coming up next? Is this
Jacob.
Jacob?
Jacob.
Oh my gosh! So
Yeah.
I was experimenting with peach pie last week on my stream.
Mm-hmm.
So peach pie is pretty cool, right? It's compile your PHP and use it with .NET.
Two of my favorite programming languages, PHP and .NET.
Oh, mesh. And it
PHP is my
screams.
very first. That's what I started with way
Really?
back in the day. Yeah.
Oh, love it. So we ready to go with Jacob?
Yeah,
How do we
yeah,
do
we're
an
good.
emo? This is James and Emo signing off. The .NET crew over here. Follow us on Twitter at James Montemagno.
And at TerraJobs.
Yeah, very easy to
go.
remember.
All right.